Hello everyone and welcome to the Freedom Watchdog channel. There's a lot of talk about hyperinflation at the moment because recently what's kicked it off is Jack Dorsey's come out with a tweet. Hyperinflation is going to change everything, it's happening. And there's lots of people coming out with a million reasons why, we won't hyperinflate, this, that, the other, but eventually we will hyperinflate. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, which is what Jack's implied on some other tweets. But I do want to go over some eerie similarities which are happening right now, which also happened back in Weimar Germany in the 1920s. And of course they hyperinflated their currency away in spectacular fashion. So let's get into it and look at some of the similarities. Now the first thing what's very similar to Weimar Germany is governments around the world, similar to what they did in Weimar, have made an environment where certain demographics will be discriminated against and not allowed to work, i.e. if you don't take certain medicine. And they've also made it so some which are willing to take the medicine won't actually be willing to work because they've just been on and off working for the past 12-18 months, and it's given them time to reflect and think about things which they actually want to do, not going back to that minimum wage job. And they've probably made, some of them anyway, have made quite a lot of money in the crypto market and the stock market as well, which has been inflated up by all this stimulus and furlough money that's been given out over the past year or so. And how this is similar to what happened in Weimar, when all the men came back after the First World War, all the employers, or most of the employers, actually decided to kick the women that had been filling the gap, if you like, in the labour market for all those strenuous jobs which men would normally done. They actually kicked all those women out of their jobs in order for the men to have something to do when they get back. So there's the first half of what I was saying in terms of a discrimination of those that don't want to take the medicine. But actually what happened when the men got back is all the strenuous jobs and physical jobs and dirty jobs which the women was doing before the men got back, a lot of the men didn't stick at doing because they didn't want to do it. A lot of them have killed other men in the war and they feel like they served the country and they don't want to come back and do these strenuous horrible jobs which no one wants to do, while the women was willing to do it but the men wasn't. So you could say that attitude, even though it was for different reasons, completely different reasons, that attitude of people that can work or are still allowed to work don't want to work. Like I say, back then it was because the men felt like they served the country. They'd probably been through a hell of a time anyway through First World War. I mean, it must have been horrific, and they thought, I'm not going to go back and do a job which they feel's beneath them. Same attitude now, as I say. Why would people go back to these low paid jobs when they've just made a lot of money on the stock market or crypto, or even if they haven't made that much money or any money at all, they've had the time, they've been paid to sit at home, they've had the time to think through their life a lot more, and the retraining or rethinking or going for things which means more to them in their life. And that obviously leaves a big gap in the labour market. Now it's kind of getting obvious that at some point there will be a lot of job layoffs, even though right now they need more workers. And the reason why that would be is, again, another similarity to what happened in Weimar Germany, is there's a material shortage. So what are we seeing around the world now? We're seeing shortages of everything. I'm not going to go into the reason why, I've said so many times on my other videos, but this is yet another similarity. Now another big problem which was happening was distribution of food, and we can see that right now even though it is still early stages. We're seeing massive HGV driver shortages around the country and around the world as well. It's not just the UK with this problem. Now what happened was it was harder for Germany to get hold of coal, and they needed coal to power all the steam trains to distribute food around the country. What happened was the coal got more expensive to buy, it was harder for them to import, and the government knew that because of a lot of other issues us having in that country politically at the time anyway, they knew that if the people started starving, they're basically going to kill the government, because it was quite a different time to what people are like today. They've been through a lot of brutality with the First World War. and it was just a generally very politically unstable time for Germany. The government at the time just decided to spend whatever it takes. Inflation was a secondary problem. They just had to make sure the food was still being distributed around in order to keep the peace. And obviously, even though the situation is slightly different, they're going to have to raise the price of truckers, HGV drivers' wages substantially. So the price has still gone up quite a lot. The only difference is it's not going to be the government paying it, at least I don't think it will. It's going to be obviously commercial distribution suppliers which need to raise up the price and ultimately pass it on to the people. And if the government step in and decide to subsidise, well, that's going to make things worse, because they're just going to push up the deficit higher in order to do so, which will raise prices higher for them, and it's just a vicious cycle. It'll make things worse eventually for the people, just like it did in Weimar Germany. Now, like I say, even though there's big differences, the result's still the same. There's still a breakdown in supply. Obviously, we're still all ticking by right now. Everything's not too bad. But in other countries, they are starting to see empty shelves a lot more. And we have seen it in the UK, to be fair, to some degree. And I believe these problems will get worse before they get better. Another thing they're doing is raising taxes. In Weimar Germany, they raised the taxes substantially, specifically to people that was profiting really well from speculating at certain things. But we're also seeing it right here in the UK. Wishy-washy Sunak with his recent bill, there's a lot of hidden things in there which actually means us the people are paying more in tax, even though he did quite a good job at presenting it to be something else. If you look into it a bit deeper, you'll see that we're actually going to be worse off, and I may actually do a video on that and just break it down, but there are numerous other videos on YouTube which have already done so. So the bottom line is we're paying more, and that's something they did in Weimar Germany. It's when they get desperate, you see. They know inflation's getting out of hand and they want to try and calm it and slow it, but ultimately they're not going to be able to, unfortunately. Now, another thing which is happening right now, which happened in Weimar Germany, probably my favourite thing, the most alike thing there is in regards to the hysteria, is there's a lot of stock market gambling. And the reason this was happening is, on the surface, it looked like the German economy was booming because there's money everywhere, everyone felt wealthy, they didn't understand what was going on. And what happened was it just led to a lot of people speculating. Similar to what we're seeing now, people speculating on a lot of stocks, a lot of different cryptos and stuff which aren't really worth anything at all, or not worth anything near what people are paying for them. And I understand, a lot of people are getting rich off it, but a lot of people are literally just throwing the money away. And if you guys watch this channel or watch other channels similar to this, you'll already know already. But also in Weimar Germany, what was happening as well, and what people realise, is the standard of living was going down, but the cost of living was going up. So that forced people to feel like they had to take risks in order to make money, to stay ahead, and to pay the bills and keep up the kind of lifestyle which they was used to. And of course, at the time, even though they realised the cost of living was going up, they still thought the economy was booming, and as a result of all this inflation, a lot of companies were actually making record profits as well at the start on paper, so the dividends looked great. So it was pretty much a no-brainer, wasn't it? It was almost like getting free money a lot of the time. And what happened there was actually Gresham's law. The people didn't realise what they was doing, but they was trying to get that bad money out the system in order to profit off good money off a company, which you could class as good money, or sound money rather, because it was, producing. Of course, the German people at that time just didn't realise, even though they knew the inflation was going up, what exactly was taking place and what was about to take place. Now, the last thing I need to mention here is there's a big divide among the people on how they felt politically, and also how they felt amongst each other as a result. A lot of hatred was going on in Germany, even before the regime of Hitler came into play. I think there was over 7 governments which was brought in and abolished in the first 5 years of the Weimar Republic being formed. And also, during the late 19 teens and the early 1920s, there was literally hundreds of government officials assassinated by rival parties and even members of the public. Now hopefully stuff like that, we don't get too extreme now, but we are seeing a big divide amongst people which let's say pro-medicine and want it to be mandatory pretty much. They're all for the passes and all that kind of thing, and people which are anti-medicine, which is what they're being labelled as. I mean, that's quite ridiculous that you'd be labelled for not wanting to put a foreign substance into your body, but that's the state of the world we live in, and there's obviously millions of people right around the world now pushing back against things that the government want doing, against certain passes coming into play and all that kind of thing, and neither side is willing to back down. And I understand this has nothing to do with inflation, but isn't it interesting that these things do run in cycles to some degree? There's so many similarities. I mean, I could go on, I could sit here for an hour or more and talk about the similarities between with now and Weimar Germany, as well as similarities with Soviet Russia as well. There's quite a lot of similarities there. Maybe I'll do a separate video about that, which they ironically also had massive inflation problems. But anyway, there's only so much I can talk about on this platform, as I'm sure you know. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe. And if you're worried about hyperinflation, then make sure you buy some Bitcoin, gold or silver. That's not financial advice, that's just me making sure that hopefully you'll get some insurance sorted out. Thanks for watching, I'll see you on the next one.